And on the history of the Melbourne Cup, we're talking about the 1970 winner, Chris Standy. And we're here at the Sydney home of Alex Kay, the trainer of Chris Standy. And of course, Alex, you trained the greyhound for your sister, Christine McDonald. There's an interesting story of how Christine came across Chris Standy.
Yes, well, Chris rang me one day at work and mentioned that she had a puppy she wanted to look at that a friend was selling. And you treat that with some sort of scepticism because you hear these stories all the time and you never hear of the dog again. But I said, I'll go out and look at it for you, Chris, and we'll see whether it's worthwhile buying. So I went out there and there were all these little puppies gathered around the feed dish and they were all feverishly trying to eat, and there was this one at the very back, the absolute runt of the litter, trying desperately to get there by pulling other dogs' tails, trying to get them away and then dash in while there was a gap. Of course the dogs got back in before this one got there, so I immediately discounted that puppy. I said, oh, we wouldn't want that one, of course. So Chris says, I like that one. I said, you can't be serious. And this went on for about half an hour. We debated. She said, no, I like that one. He shows spirit. The other dogs are all there. He's trying to get there. I love his spirit and his courage. So, okay, but he was a miniature puppy, Neil, and took him home and vomited all the way home because we found out he had severe tonsillitis. So it was an inauspicious start to the dog's career, I assure you.
Now, Christine treated him very, very kindly throughout his rearing stage and up to his race days. Maybe you would have thought a little bit too much attention.
Yes, so, you know, I had a few dogs and I had a couple of good dogs, and you thought you've got to treat them a bit tough and they grow up rough and tough. Chris went out there every weekend, walked the dog, almost put a little coat on it when it was cold and so on, and just broke it into the lead. But just from about 6 months on, she was walking it like a racing greyhound.
Nice.
And we again thought, you know, that's wonderful, Chris, to do this, but obviously the dog will never amount to anything. So I hope we always try to prepare her for the worst. Look, he'll probably never be any good. He was sick as a puppy, but she just loved the dog. And
he always showed terrific speed, potential as a top greyhound from when you started trialling him or whatever?
Just after the start, we actually got him broken at Johnny Sparks' place, and he broke him fairly, nothing special. So that didn't surprise me. But he had a track leg. Anyway, he just finished his breaking in, and my brother-in-law Vince, Chris's brother, had a dog called Zorba, or kennel name. And he said he's a very fast dog, so we put Chris Standy around with him, and he gave Zorba a hiding, so we thought this dog might be able to run a bit. So really he showed it from the time. I actually used some, obviously, bone radial to get rid of the track leg.
Yep.
And from that date on, he just improved another 6 or 7 lengths, and he could really run.
Yeah, he could. Now he's an absolute star in Melbourne, come Melbourne Cup time, and Haydale had held the track record at Sandown for some period of time. So it was a mighty performance to set that track record and set everybody alight in Melbourne with, gee, how good's this dog?
Yeah, he did. And just a very quick thing, on the way down we had a burst tyre and wheel at a place just near Holbrook, and we had to go for about 70 miles at 10 kilometres an hour or something to get there. We almost turned back. That was part of the story, but then when we got there, we put him, I walked him on the track. We ran out of money, of course, buying tyres and wheels and these sort of things. So I went there, we actually sat in the MCG park all day with the dog, and took him to the track and just walked him around to give him some view, but he'd never seen the track. And people came up and said, you can't win first up at Sandown. It was a sort of a wet night too, a drizzly night. And I think it was Alan Chauncey came out and said, you can't win here first up, you've got no hope, mate, but you've got a nice dog there. And he's come out and won by, I think, 7 lengths or something, around 30 and 2. I hope you don't mind me mentioning, but before all this, of course, he ran 10th outside the world record at Wenty. But I brought him home, that was on the Monday night, that's what I've got the photo of. And on the Saturday night he was in the same grade, and he was 3 to 1 on. But I came out on the Wednesday morning, the dog couldn't stand up. We had the fence jumpers there.
Oh, right.
And they'd come in and they'd nobble the dog. And I just couldn't get him to stand up. So I gave him a month off, took him to Harold Park, and he ran 10 lengths last in a trial. So I gave him another 4 months off, and his liver was absolutely gone, just about shot, what they gave him. And I gave him, and this was his first run back at Sandown. I think we even entered a bit late too, they were very generous to us.
Amazing. Now, back for the Melbourne Cup, and Grand Sapper, trained by the great Ned Bryant, was a fantastic sprinter and probably, I recall, maybe favourite for the race, but well fancied. And how did you feel going into the race? Did you think you could win?
Well, again, I'm sorry to give you a saga here, but the dog sprung a toe in the heat, and on the way home, we stopped the car. You know, we're all over the moon, you know, exultant about this dog and how well he'd gone breaking got him out and he's limping around, the dog. Just couldn't believe it, so we had to take him to Reg Hoskins, the great vet up here, and he's offside. I can't think of his name now, apologise for that, but he's needled the toe. and we had him bandaged till the morning of the race. And obviously he didn't tell the stewards I wasn't going to have him scratched from the thing, but he said he'd be okay to run, but obviously not a trial in between, and had the bandage on. And everyone knew about it. I took him out to the track to walk him. All the other trainers saying, which toe did he bring? You try and guess it, I said. You pick it. And they couldn't pick it.
Yeah.
So that obviously took away my confidence, because you knew the dog just wasn't as good as he should have been, even though the toe obviously held up for the run.
Now, Grand Sapper looked the winner, and he was a powerful finish, a mighty performance. I mean, he really stood the leader up. You know, probably what a lot of people thought, he couldn't run him down, but it was a great performance to actually run past Grand Sapper and win the race. And from where you were, you probably didn't think he had won. No,
well, he was sixth coming to the turn, and you can imagine that at Sandown.
Yep.
And I gave him absolutely no hope, just hoping. I thought obviously the toes playing up or something like that, but he just came over the top of them. He ran 31.1, which was a slow time, but even the commentators were saying it was such a different race to the heat. You know, what an unbelievable run to come from there to win. And where I was standing, I thought he ran third. Yeah.
Well, he was an amazing greyhound, Chris's dandy, and a terrific story. Plenty of stories surrounding the dog, and your time in greyhound racing. Of course, now, Alex, you enjoy the world of harness racing with almost as much success.
Yeah, well, I've been very, very fortunate with the harness racing. I've had a number of good horses. One called Make the Rules, which won 8 straight at Gloucester Park, and then was beaten by Nose 3 times in a row. And I've had the Falcon Stripe. I'm a part owner of the Falcon Stripe, and he's last year's Grand Circuit.
Yeah.
So I've been very lucky, and I love both sports. I've had a couple of dogs in the meantime, not trained again, and Vince has trained some for me, and we've had some fair dogs, but nothing, of course, like a Chris's Dandy.
Terrific. Alex, it's been great to catch up here and relive wonderful memories of the 1970 Melbourne Cup with Chris's Dandy.
Thanks, Neil. It's been great to relive them. I haven't thought about them for a long while, so it's wonderful to remember. Thank you.